Signature abilities are some of the best and most iconic abilities in Pokémon. They are typically given special treatment due to their limited distribution to one Pokémon, one evolutionary line, or a legendary group. Most Pokémon that have signature abilities only get that one ability, but for those that get multiple abilities, that signature ability is usually their best and most reliable option. However, in this video, I'll be discussing Pokémon that don't tend to use their signature ability at all, either because that Pokémon has better ability options it would rather be using, or because that ability is just not very good in the first place. I recently did this same video but with signature moves, which I recommend you check out. Like that video, I will discuss why each Pokémon doesn't tend to use their signature ability and what they would rather use instead. A lot of these signature abilities are not bad, just not the best option on the specific Pokémon that gets them. I will be excluding any abilities that became signature abilities due to the others being taken out of the game, since I don't really feel that these fit within the traditional definition of a signature ability. I'll be considering these Pokémon in the most recent singles and doubles competitive formats that they were made available, as I feel that they don't use their signature ability in either format. With all that being said, let's look at Pokémon that don't tend to use their signature abilities. First up, we have Espathra not using Opportunist. Opportunist causes the user to copy the opponent's stat boosts as they are being made by the opponent. So if your opponent Dragon Dances while Espathra is on the field, it will copy that +1 attack and speed boost for itself, but it does not copy any stat changes an opponent already has. This is a really cool ability, and when I used Espathra during my first playthrough of Scarlet, Opportunist totally saved me against a trainer one time. Unfortunately, as cool as this ability is, Espathra hardly ever uses it because it gets the ability Speed Boost, which increases its speed by 1 stage at the end of every turn. This is especially good on Espathra because it gets the move Stored Power. Stored Power is a special attacking Psychic type move that has an initial base power of 20 and increases by an additional 20 for every stat boost the user has. As a special attacking Psychic type that gets a free speed boost every turn from its ability, Espathra is the perfect user of Stored Power. It also gets access to Calm Mind, a move that raises its special attack and special defense by 1 stage each to get even more stat boosts. And you could always throw on Protect or Substitute if you want to stall for speed boost even more. If you don't have a way of dealing with Espathra before it starts setting up, its speed boost and Calm Mind boosted stored powers can get crazy high in base power, something that can't necessarily be said if Espathra uses Opportunist, since those stat boosts are completely dependent on your opponent. Next, we have Toxapex not using Merciless. Merciless causes the user to always land a critical hit against a poisoned target. Like Espathra's Opportunist, Merciless is a really cool ability, but Toxapex never uses it because it gets access to Regenerator. Regenerator heals the user by 33% of its max HP upon switching out. If you look at Toxapex's stats, it is built very defensively, and its typing, access to certain moves, and access to Regenerator complement this very well. Water Poison is a great defensive typing with 3 weaknesses and 8 resistances. Toxapex's signature move Baneful Bunker is a protect variant that poisons attackers that make contact. It also blocks status moves, unlike most protect variants with secondary effects like King's Shield or Burning Bulwark that just block attacking moves. Toxapex also gets Toxic Spikes, Toxic, Recover, Haze, and Infestation, all tools that help Toxapex stall out its opponent or help it defensively in some way. Given how many ways Toxapex can poison its opponent with Toxic Spikes, Toxic, Baneful Bunker, and some poison type attacking moves, you'd think that landing a guaranteed crit with Merciless would see some use, but its defensive tools are just way better, making Regenerator the clear option for an ability. Next, we have Sableye not using Stall. Stall causes the user to move last in its priority bracket. This ability straight up sucks. I understand that there are times where you would want to move last, like when using a move that induces sleep, or using a move that switches you out since it gives you a safer following turn, but Sableye learns no such move. I also understand that Sableye could skill swap this negative ability onto its opponent, but for the most part, this ability is just straight up bad because Sableye gets the ability Prankster, an ability that does almost the exact opposite thing as Stall, which is grant +1 priority to status moves. Prankster is a great ability that Sableye is able to take advantage of with its wide array of status moves, such as Confuse Ray, Sunny Day, Rain Dance, Reflect, Light Screen, Thunder Wave, Taunt, Will-O-Wisp, Trick, Encore, Spite, Gravity, Disable, Quash, Mean Look, Torment, and even more. Considering how much Mycelium Might holds back Toedscruel, an otherwise decent Pokemon, it's no telling how bad Sableye would have been if it was only given Stall, since its base stats are complete garbage, lower than most middle stage evolutions. Luckily, Sableye gets Prankster, which gives it some decent use. Next, we have Kecleon not using Color Change. Color Change causes the user to change its type to the type of the last attack it was hit by. Like Sableye's Stall, this ability straight up sucks. Again, I do understand that there are situations where color change could be useful, but for the most part, it is just bad. The main reason that it's so bad is that it doesn't put the user in control of its own type, but rather the opponent. Maybe in a double battle you could hit your ally Kecleon, but again, this is very situational. Having your type change is mostly bad because you lose stab, making your offense worse. It also makes your defense worse since your opponent could exploit your type change by hitting you with an attack of one type and then hitting you with another attack that's super effective against that first type. Anyway, starting in Gen 6, Kecleon gets Protean as its hidden ability, which also changes the user's type, but instead of changing to the type of the move the user is hit by, it changes the user's type to the type of the move it is about to use. This is way better since it puts the user in control of its own type, which is much better for offense and defense. For offense, it essentially gives you stab on every move you use, and for defense, you can change to a type that could potentially be resisted by an opponent's attack. This ability was nerfed in Gen 9 to only work for the first move used on a given switch-in, but Kecleon is not in Gen 9, so technically it wasn't affected by this nerf. Now, I love the idea of color change since Kecleon is based on a chameleon, an animal that changes its color, but the execution was very poor, especially considering the missed opportunity in not giving Kecleon alternate forms that are different colors or making its shiny more colorful. Next, we have Drifblim not using Flare Boost. Flare Boost increases the power of the user's special moves by 50% if they are burned. Think of it as special guts that only works for burns. Now, Drifblim is honestly not that great of a Pokemon, but in pretty much all competitive formats I look through where it is used, it uses Unburden way more than it uses Flare Boost. Unburden doubles the user's speed when its item is consumed or lost. With Drifblim having an average speed stat, it is very workable after some boosts, so doubling it makes it very fast. There are plenty of ways to have your item consumed to activate Unburden, like using a Terrain Seed that activates upon entry, using a Citrus Berry that activates after being at 50% HP or less, a whole bunch of other berries that activate at 25% HP or less, using a weakness policy and getting hit with a super effective attack, or using a white herb to reset negative stat changes. With Drifblim's stats being arranged the way they are, a doubled speed modifier from Unburden is much more valuable to it than a 1.5 times special attack modifier from Flare Boost since its defenses are so low. If you use a Terrain Seed or a stat boosting berry, you can even get a modifier for a different stat at the same time, while Flare Boost will almost always result in just a special attack boost, since you're essentially forced into using the Flame Orb to get that burn off. I think this ability could be really cool on a Pokemon that has naturally high speed, but with Drifblim's average speed and low defenses, it can't really take advantage of it. Next, we have Unovan Darmanitan not using Zen Mode. Zen Mode is a form changing ability that causes Darmanitan to change between its standard mode form and its Zen Mode form. When its HP is above half, it stays in its standard form. When its HP drops below half, it will change into its Zen Mode form at the end of the turn, and Darmanitan can change back to its standard form if its HP gets back over half. If you've seen my form changing ability ranking video, you'll know that I rank this in last place because of how this ability completely changes the way that Darmanitan plays, and not for the better. Standard mode Darmanitan is a pure fire type and is a physical glass cannon with its high attack and low defenses, while Zen mode Darmanitan is a fire psychic type and is a slow but bulky special attacker. In order to take advantage of the strengths of both of these forms, you would need both physical and special attacking moves on the same set at the same time, as well as a reliable form of speed control, one of which would probably have to be Trick Room because of Zen mode Darmanitan's low speed. Darmanitan doesn't even learn Trick Room though, but I think you get the point that this form change ability is just a complete mess. Luckily, Darmanitan doesn't have to use this ability since it also gets Sheer Force, an ability that increases the power of attacks with secondary effects while removing those secondary effects. The main move that Darmanitan uses that takes advantage of Sheer Force is Flare Blitz, a move that has a chance to burn, so it will be increased to 156 base power at the cost of removing that burn chance, which is not really a big loss. The reason I didn't include Galarian Darmanitan is that it actually sometimes uses Zen mode, since it doesn't change its stats to make it a slow special attacker, but rather into a faster and harder hitting physical attacker, which functions infinitely better than Unovan Darmanitan's Zen mode. Even then, Galarian Darmanitan generally prefers to use Guerrilla Tactics, which is essentially choice band the ability, so it works very well with choice items. Next, we have Zygarde not using Aura Break. Aura Break reverses the effects of all Aura abilities, all two of them, Fairy Aura and Dark Aura. These abilities boost the power of all Fairy and Dark moves on the field respectively by a modifier of 4/3, and Aura Break flips that modifier to 3/4, making those attacks weaker. This ability was specifically made so that Zygarde could counter Xerneas and Yveltal to guard the ecosystem from these two. Kinda like how Rayquaza's Airlock ability nullifies the weather set by Groudon and Kyogre, acting as the guardian or equalizer that maintains balance of the weather. Since these abilities are rooted in the lore of their role in the story of the games they come from, they are very situational in battle. Rayquaza's ability is useless if there is no weather on the field, but at least there are more weather setters than just Groudon and Kyogre. Zygarde's ability is even more useless since it only works against Xerneas and Yveltal. Luckily for Zygarde, it gets another ability, Power Construct. This ability allows Zygarde to change between either its 10 or 50% form to its complete form. It changes form in almost the exact same conditions as Darmanitan, which is by having its HP below half where it will change form at the end of the turn, but Zygarde will remain in its changed form for the entirety of the battle, unlike Darmanitan that can potentially change back. This changes Zygarde's stats, with the main change being the massive boost to its HP, giving it one of the highest HP stats of all Pokemon. With good defenses too, this makes it very bulky, which is a much better use than making Xerneas or Yveltal weaker with Aura Break. So that's it for all the normal entries, but I wanted to include a less interesting bonus round of Pokemon with signature abilities that are singles or doubles dependent, so they will not see use in one of the formats. Those are Tatsugiri not using Commander, Flamigo not using Co-Star, and Sinistcha not using Hospitality, all doubles exclusive abilities that will obviously not see use in singles. There's also Passimian and Alolan Muck not using Receiver and Power of Alchemy in singles, which are technically signature abilities, but they have the exact same effect and only differ in name, which I don't really feel are actually signature abilities. Same goes for Barraskewda and Archaludon not using Propeller Tail and Stalwart in singles, but these are again abilities with identical effects that only differ in name, so not really signature abilities. There's also Corviknight not using Mirror Armor as much in singles since it is much better in doubles, and Kingambit not using Supreme Overlord in doubles since it is much better in singles. And those are Pokemon that don't tend to use their signature ability. Let me know in the comments if you disagree with any of my reasonings, or feel that I missed any. This is the ability counterpart to the signature move video I made recently, and since that video did so well, and since I got a lot of suggestions for abilities I could include, I decided to make this video. Now I could even make a video on Pokemon that don't use their signature items, but I really don't know if there are a lot of entries that I could include, but let me know if you can think of any. Anyway, if you want to support me and my channel, the best way to do so is just by leaving a nice comment. I do read all comments and will try my best to respond to as many as I can. You can also click the join button and become a member, and I made the cost as low as possible at 99 cents USD. Members get a badge next to their name and early video access. Keep in mind that these videos will be releasing on my normal schedule for non-members, so please don't feel obligated at all to join unless you really want to support me and you are financially capable of doing so. Huge thanks to all my members. I really appreciate your continued support for the channel. Likes are also one of the ways that YouTube determines if a video should be passed around to more people, so if you feel that this video deserves to be, I would appreciate it. Thanks for watching.